this Committee of the Whole Finance Committee meeting to order. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Mayor Lay, seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And a motion to adopt the minutes of January 21st. Moved by Councillor Lang. He had his hand up first, and seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, we have a delegation from Randy Morris from the Kaslo Institute. Can you go on up?
Thank you very much.
10 minutes max.
Oh, it's going to be, I promise, less than that this time, for sure. Did Neil have a chance to send out the, okay, so you've seen that, and you know why I'm here. I'm requesting a $5,000 contribution from Council towards the hosting in Council of the 2014 BC Rural Communities Summit. It's a big deal. We're by far the smallest place to ever host this event. And that's what's exciting and daunting too. We've got about 90 days to pull it off. So every bit helps, and especially every timely bit. I'm pleased to report that the first organization that we turned to for some support was the Council Chamber. I see there's a delegation from the Council Chamber here. I didn't know they were going to be here, who have generously contributed $3,000 towards the summit. And I guess the final thing I would say is that it's our intention that this not be a one-off. We did it in mid-June. We'll look back and congratulate ourselves on having pulled it off. This is the start of something much bigger. The summit is really just the launch of a larger campaign. So obviously, we think this is going to be terrific for the village, and we hope that we can count on the village to provide us some support. I'm happy to field any questions you might have.
Anyone have questions? Councillor Lang?
Yeah, so it would be helpful in assessing this if we knew, roughly what your global budget is and where that money's coming from.
Yeah, I can provide you with that. It's north of $80,000.
Okay. Just not school loans.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's what I missed it. Okay, thank you for that.
And Rob, we worked that out in part through discussions with previous summit hosts in Grand Forks and some of the other cities.
Have we allotted our community development fund this year?
No.
Your municipal grant funds are about to set in there.
No, this is community development.
We have applied on the basis of the invitation from the area director for the match funds for the health selection.
So what we can do is defer this to into the budget discussions later on.
It would be really helpful for me to have some kind of sense of your timing in terms of the decision. So we've got 90 days, and then the school's going to be full of people from across British Columbia. So I don't know if that's possible, but it would be really helpful for me at least to have some sense of your process and the timing of a yes or a no.
And on all of us.
Well, if we could access all the funds that Councilor Reese would refer to, I think you get a pretty prompt response. The question in my mind is, does that fall under the meet the necessary criteria or not? If that's not available, then we're going to have to find the money from somewhere else, which would be a little bit more difficult in that we're already fully expended in the grants department. In fact, we're oversubscribed at this stage of the game. So we're going to have to do something a little bit creative here to find you that money. I think there's a willingness to support this, but we just got to, find a logical avenue in order to make this happen.
Really?
So can I make a recommendation then that we award $5,000 to the Kaslo Institute for the BC Rural Network Conference, providing it meets the criteria of the Community Development Fund allocation. And having read through many of those grants, Creston in particular, if you look at all the money directors, that municipalities get from that fund, it would seem to me there's a good expectation that the $5,000 would be available, but it needs to come before budget. And how soon do we bring it before budget?
Later on in this meeting. I was just not wanting to make a motion right this minute, is what I was shooting for. We'll discuss it in context with the rest of the budget, is what I meant by deferring it, just to later on in the meeting, not like next meeting or anything, but just later on in this meeting.
That's my motion.
So, can you have me read it back?
Award $5,000 to the Kaslo Institute for hosting the BCRN Summit, pending it meets criteria for the regional district of Santa Cruz Community Development Funds.
The municipal portion.
Municipal portion.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Lang. Discussion?
So how much of that did we apply for matching?
For the health?
Yeah.
3 to 5 on the advice of the area director.
Sorry, do you know if do we have 30,000?
We'll know tomorrow in the regional district price for their meeting. Hopefully there is.
I don't know if it's relevant, but we've, as part of the answer to your question, Rob, as you'll see if you look at that budget, one of the organizations that we're also turning to for funding is the RDCK.
This is our money from them.
I understand, yeah.
So it won't affect. You're getting there at any allotment.
I'm ignorant in the ways of the interactions between municipalities and districts.
All right, any other, okay, so all those in favor? Motion carried.
There you go.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So we just have to wait to make sure that there is enough funds and that it meets criteria.
Great. So one way or the other, I would expect to hear from Neil at
Yes.
some point.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, next delegation from Chamber of Commerce.
Hello there.
How's it? So you get 10 minutes to make your pitch, and then we can ask you questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if any of you have seen the application already that we have submitted. Everybody's had a copy of that. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Our application is to request funds from the Community Development Grant. These funds coming from the regional district. And what we're asking for is we want to hire an administrative assistant for our new chamber office. And the reason we want to have an assistant is so that they can coordinate the work of the chamber, as well as we're going to be using their services for other organizations within the village and Area D. So it has a very broad application. Our ask is for $15,000. And I've already talked to Director Shadrack, and he's aware that we're going to be making this ask. And we're also aware that these funds come from Area D, filtered through the village, and then dispersed through the village.
What we would like to know is whether or not a council would support it. And I'd like to ask each one of the councillors whether or not they could support funds from the Community Development Grant to the Chamber for that the purpose of hiring an administrative assistant. Rob?
I guess I just need clarity whether you're wanting to access community development funds that are the villages, or whether you're going directly to
No,
Director
it's-
Shadrach, and that's his, and you're wanting a letter of support for that.
No, no,
You're wanting
asking
our portion.
that's,
The village portion.
that's correct.
Any questions for Louise and John? Councillor Lang?
Is this, the $15,000, is that a do or die number? If you don't get 15, the program folds, it's 10?
No, that's not true. What we're hoping for is the 15 or a good portion of that. And we're not having a real solid line here, but what we're saying is that's a reasonable amount so that we can have, and it won't be a full-time position. It will probably only be able to fund maybe a 0.4 position at this point. But we feel that that is, you know, this was a reasonable ask. We're more than willing to, you know, have some flexibility and some negotiation as far as the final number is concerned.
Mayor Lee?
Do you think you could use this money to leverage other funding?
Absolutely.
I was just going to add to that, you know, this funding would be used. I mean, we are looking for funds for this position, but we feel that, you know, with this leverage funding, we can go to other organizations. And the other thing that's very important to note too is that because we're looking for funds for an administrative assistant, that administrative assistant would also be looking for funds once they were hired, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in essence, it may be somewhat of a seed funding to start the position on. As John was saying, is we certainly hope to hire someone that's competent and is able to do other, you know, look for other funding sources to keep this position going.
So this is only for this year that you're asking for?
That's
this?
correct.
Yep.
It's a one-time ask.
So my question is, would you support this?
I think we need to just now, because we have just now committed $5,000 to the Rural Summit, and we have something we've already committed to. So I think we need to look at what we have left and see what we can support.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would support it, but again, I think we need to see what we can do, rather than
Okay.
say yes to 15,000.
And similar to what Randy was asking, we're under a timeline too, because we have to start the process and try to get somebody in that office. We've been very, very fortunate to have a philanthropic gift of rent-free from a benefactor, and also we have quite a few volunteers that have been working trying to pull this together. So we've all collectively been making our own contributions and making a big effort, and we feel that we're going to be able to work more effectively with the village and having an actual office where we can have communication back and forth and support each other back and forth, and we want to work collaboratively with the village.
I would support the ask of 15,000
Thank you.
in the budget to be.
May we ask?
Okay, Councillor Lang?
I'm trying to remember the total amount of that grant last year. What, wasn't it a $30,000?
No, it wasn't. It was 30 because we had some unexpended from the prior year.
Right. And how much did we spend in 2013?
I think we spent it all, but we, like I said, we have, the regional district budget meeting is tomorrow, and that's when we find out what our allotment even is. We haven't a clue at this point.
The $30,000 from last year is fully committed to the broadband project once that's able to move forward.
That's true.
I'll say once, not.
So it was 100% committed from last year.
Right. So it's just whatever we've got left.
In the new
Yes.
allotment, because the assessment varies. I forget what the formula is, how they calculate it, but every year it's up and down about $1,000, and last year it was 30,000.
No, it was only about 23, and we
Yeah.
had some left from the prior year.
We've already committed 5 now, so we have to.
Well, 8 or now considering the health.
Right, 8.
So,
We're really excited because this position and the new, having the office supports not only the Kaslo business community, but the Area D business community. And we're hoping to also use our facility to help other nonprofits, arts communities, so that they can use our facility as well. So it's going to be a very community-based office where it's not only the chamber members that will be able to access that facility and the equipment, but it's have a broader application. So we think it's a very healthy initiative.
Can I just ask a question? Are you actually going to ask Director Shadrack for some regional district funds? Because this is ours to make the decision on. So you've talked to him about accessing some of his community development funds as well?
Yes, and I've already had the discussion with him, and he recommended that we come collaboratively and ask the village, because that's where he's funneling these funds, or to have access to these funds. He recommended this, as a matter of fact.
Okay. It's sort of, it's not his decision. Once the funds come here, it's totally ours. But he does have his own large pot of money. So since it is Kaslo an area chamber,
right,
I'd like to think that he would also contribute to that as well.
And we're just starting this process. But we're hoping that the village will give us a vote of confidence and some funding to help us with this project.
So based on available funding, would you support something like this?
I would.
And what about you, Susan?
Yeah. But like, we'll have to wait until we've got too many unknowns right now to make a commitment other than the
So similar to
support.
what you're saying, Joanne, it's a similar situation where you have to look at the whole picture.
Right. And I don't think we can attach a dollar value at all at this point, not knowing what we've got to work with, knowing that we've already committed.
This is our ceiling of what we're asking
Yeah.
for, and we're certainly not going to turn down a lesser amount, but we're certainly, this is a realistic amount. We look at the position and what the requirements would be, and a one-time ask.
Would you be able to provide us with a budget?
Absolutely.
Okay. That would be useful
When would you like
information
to
to have. Well, as soon as you could send it
Well,
to me.
as the application, it says that it needs a budget as well too,
Yeah.
as well as financial information from the chamber as well too. So that will all be provided.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
All right. We'll move on to fourth.
Something that could be planned. Printed off January's water usage at the plant, and we calculated out the difference from last January and then spread that over 12 months, and it looks like we'll have an annual 25% less. It's 35% for last year, as you get busier months, it's another 5%. So work it out, so annually it's about 25% right now. And it could be even more than that because it's still running a little bit. We couldn't shut it off completely until after freezing.
Kent Creek, I want to be a little Kent Creek.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say Kent Creek. I was going to say Kimball, but Kent Creek is, we're dropping water out of it. There's less water in it this year.
Right.
We're fortunate that we're going through less. Otherwise, we'd be on the river periodically to subsidize it. It may be speeding up now,
Right.
but it had been. The Kimball heat, quite the saga. We had Adam James here, the guy that designed the system, because he wanted to install some instrumentation to do a little report. Nothing really to do with us, it's to do with him and other projects. Our panel downstairs is messed up, possibly repairable, that's still up in the air.
The electrical panel?
No, the control panel for the boilers and the jig
Oh.
throwing units. We're unsure whether it can be reprogrammed or has to be replaced yet. I had a
Whose
guy-
cost? Oh,
So
sorry.
it'll be yours. It's over, the warranty's done. We had a guy in today, yesterday, servicing the propane units. They really haven't been serviced since we took it over, so we're overdue. And there's some minor things that he's fixed up, and the pilot light shouldn't go again. We are looking at putting in a dialer system thermometer, a thermostat, so that if the building ever gets to a certain, we'll have to have a set point, we don't know what it is yet. If it gets cold enough, it will trigger a dialer. So that, because if it gets really cold, the geothermal cuts out. That's just the way they are. And if the propane doesn't come on, then we have a problem. So,
And we were just very lucky when it happened that it wasn't over the long weekend. We could have been coming back to very expensive plumbing first.
oh yeah, water damage to the road. Yeah. So we're looking at that, putting in just a dialer, not an automated, but just a simple thing for us on the problem. Anything else in there?
No, it just seems to be shaping up as a couple of key aspects to getting that system up and running. Once we've got the propane system sorted, the next is getting the electrical readout unit and programming software sorted on the heating system. Adam James had a variety of theories that possibly things are firing in the wrong order, which is why we're going through so much propane. But because that unit appears to be either broken or defective, we can't monitor it, we can't reprogram it. And we're McCormick, who installed it, are essentially no longer in the picture in the local area, is our understanding. So we're looking for a new expert in the local area to help us with this. The other aspect is the installation of additional radiators to improve the overall temperature of the building so the geothermal runs more. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was something we knew right from the beginning. It was a possibility, but we decided not to install it right away and see where it was needed, not just install it everywhere. So it looks like we may have to do that according to Adam, to have the geo run more often. The geo will only operate at a certain temperature, which is lower than the boilers. So if you don't have enough radiators, you need more of them because they're not running as hot to achieve the same temperature in the rooms. Is basically what it comes down to.
I don't get that. It doesn't make sense to me. But
In what way?
well, by having more radiators, if the water's at a certain temperature, by having more radiators, it seems to me there should be set points, right? The water should leave downstairs at a certain temperature.
Yes.
And return at a certain temperature, just like an in-floor system, like I got at my house, right? But you should be able to crank that up or down depending on the situation.
It automatically does. As it gets colder outside, there's a sensor outside. The radiator, the output temperature on the geo units increases. Once it gets to a certain point, it can't meet that anymore.
Right.
And it's lower than is needed in the radiators to achieve the room temperature. So the boilers kick in and the geo goes off because the return temperature is higher than the
What the
input.
geothermal would
Yeah.
generate. Yeah.
So, yeah, but if you have more radiators, then it doesn't have to be as hot in the rooms, and you can adjust your line down the way.
I sort of get it. I'm just thinking that we should reach a certain, when it gets really cold, I understand the propane has to kick in to bring that water up to temperature, but then when the temperature drops back down to what's considered normal, which would be -3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, then it should automatically go, the propane should shut off,
It is supposed to, you're right there.
and it should go back to its normal operation.
It is supposed to.
But based on the propane bills we're getting, it seems like
Right.
we're using a lot more propane than we should be under if it was working.
Adam suspects that he put one of the boilers in a rotation with the geo units. Instead of having them as the backups and the geo units as the primary, at like 1 and 2 on the geo, he put 1 and 2, that's correct, and then he had number 1 boiler as number 3 geo unit. So it was in the loop, it would rotate through instead of only being there as a backup.
Yeah, the first propane boiler was going through, from what we could see, was going through way more cycles than any of the other units. It should have been a whole unit on the distributor.
Yeah, and the reason it might be more though is when it gets cold, then it would come on as the primary. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I can't even read the display right now.
Just trying to make it make sense for me. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit.
Any other items on your list?
No.
Good time to ask. Have you figured out for the AAP?
We're currently, no, the AAP would, for the backhoe,
Yes.
that wouldn't be triggered, we wouldn't do that until we had a
Okay,
final
not the
set up.
AAP, but the pricing. But we would-
We're about to submit a
The
package
tender's just about ready to go.
Oh.
to 3. There are some interesting options out there that Glen's looking into to try and keep the price down if we can. I mean, if we can keep it down low enough, I'd bring it back before we consider going to AAP. Yeah.
I don't really see anything else that, unless there's something you can think of later on, or just the
Budget
the
things,
main
anything like
budget.
that?
Not sure. All of that is budget process, so there's lots of things there.
You can, I didn't bring the printout. You need, if you want to pop around my side, you can start to see.
Hit your areas first. So we'll go down to transportation, which is now to be renamed Public Works, rather than called Transportation Services.
So as you can see, we've got a bit of a work in progress. I haven't plugged everything in that needs to be placed in there yet. However, Glenn's gone over the Public Works budget with me and all the aspects that need change this year. There's a couple of line items. You'll see that there's quite a few references to merge, and that's just for easier understanding and management of budgets in certain budgetary areas that I'd like to get to. If I just go down in order, which isn't helpful, I just go to my great.
Just the last column is proposed,
Yes, the last column is proposed.
and this next column is.
The previous columns were the years before.
Okay, it's 213. Last year's budget and last year's actual. And then this is last year's actual.
The first item there, we've got something that may be of interest given some of the recent paper letters we've been seeing under education and training there. We get an annual amount of money from the Municipal Insurance Association of BC. Not a great deal of money. We're proposing this year to be used to send at least one of the Public Works crew to undertake danger tree assessment training, so that there's a clear rationale for dangerous tree removal and a backup paper record, so that our staff aren't questioned every time a tree's taken down, and it is the correct decision. a certification course like that costs roughly, if it's going in the local area, should be over $1,500. And that's just proposed use of it this year. Typically, you maybe use it for a liability assessment or something, or signage.
Yeah.
Or signage.
We used it for the sander.
The standard for the dog camp used to for us. I think we've only had it once before.
Signage on
I initially thought we could use it to fund all our signage requirements for liability of the aerodrome lands, but NYUBC don't deal with liability at municipal aerodromes, which is why we're requiring the private policy. So it seems like a good use, and it's a good skill to attach to at least one of the crew.
Yeah. That's what it does.
So the backhoe area, we're still waiting on some figures there for that. We've just put in some holding pattern figures. The hope is we can keep it there. On the Bobcat for this year, you'll notice that there's quite a figure attached to that. It requires, it's had quite a significant repair and a trip to Castlegar already this year.
It's got to go back,
Yeah.
but no charge on this one, because we sent it down there because of an oil leak. They couldn't find the oil leak and sent it back, and it's still leaking, and they're saying, oops, and I've lost confidence in them, but they're doing it for nothing this time, so I'm not going somewhere else, that's for sure.
And we have noted, as you'll see in my notes underneath in general, in our fuel consumption, there was quite a jump last year, and I'm budgeting for an inflationary increase again. My understanding is that when we acquire new vehicles, they tend to consume a little bit more fuel initially. Therefore, if we're adding another new vehicle to our string this year, it might be wise to assume either the same or perhaps a little more.
The diesel one can vary a lot based on snow plowing.
Yeah.
It's the biggest single. I mean, you can go through $200 a day in fuel on the loader alone.
And the price of diesel has been going crazy.
Yes.
Moving down, surveys. This was something where there was no money, but we've already done one survey this year on the avenue. That was something maybe to bring up. You were contemplating burying the avenue waterfront.
As much as I hate to do it, looking at everything that we have bitten off for this coming year, I don't know if we want to take it, postpone it or not. I don't want to not do it, but
It is a $50,000 expenditure.
Right.
You have committed to it, but it is linked to, there is no doubt it's going to be an expense for the council. If it's something that in your view could be deferred, it's not going to blow up in our faces.
well, I don't think it's currently leaking.
Yeah.
Councillor?
Are we currently using it?
Yes.
Yes. And so when there's no apparent leaks at this stage of the game.
Right. And most of the year we could probably get away without even actually using that line. Because we can feed town coming down from the golf course hill. As we did before, but I wouldn't want to do that in the summer, because if you ever had a fire, you know, the sprinklers and stuff, that's what happened with Scarlet's Hills, or the one beside Scarlet's Hills that burned. There was a lack of water at that time, and that PRV there just isn't big enough. The other one is 2 or 3 times the size.
We are still going through the process of getting a legal easement with Imperial Oil, but they have made movement on that front. So it's not absolutely essential. If we wanted to get it done this year, they would have been quite supportive of a temporary order or anything like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, the Build Canada Fund is coming forward quite quickly here with the passing of the budget, where it's a third, as I understand it. So, I'm just wondering how we could say, okay, well, let's defer it pending something like that, but get the engineering in place ready to apply when it's announced.
I don't know if we could pursue federal funding for a $50,000 expenditure. That would be rather low. I was thinking we're looking at the river intake project if there's a big enough.
Well, I'm saying I think both are.
Oh, you mean tie the two together?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the Build Canada Fund, and it is the water system, and so I think there's some opportunity there to do both because it deals with water. If they were setting water systems or something, that would be something else. But and unfortunately, how these funds are built up. If you're ready for it when it comes and you make the application, you've got a lot better chance of moving ahead with it.
We're not applying for other Build Canadas.
Well, yeah, but hopefully we're applying for the big. Well, that's a different program, and I left that with the MP folks and Alexander Banco to pursue in Ottawa to see if they can, move that along. The Build Canada Fund is for everybody. You know what I mean? It's are you ready when they announce the funding's available? It's kind of the challenge, and as that's the water system, I think we should include that as part of the ask for kaslo. And then the only issue is that the matching gas tax funds would go up. We have to commit more gas tax funds to get it done. So, but those are all decisions we can make. I think at some maybe we can put it. Is there any way we can put it in the budget as a variable?
Well, you could budget for a project, and then it's not. You can anticipate the revenue from grant aid. You can do it that way and put it in there. The same thing was done with the broadband project last year. So, and a number of those finances didn't materialise. So, you can, in anticipation of grant aid, you can construct it that way. Yeah.
Well,
we should discuss those things as a council first, shouldn't we? Because,
Discuss what?
well, if we're going to do something with the water, then we shouldn't really put it in the budget without discussing it all together as a council.
Isn't that what we're doing?
Well, this is kind of the first I heard about the water thing, so.
Well, what water thing?
Well, you were just saying it could be preliminary, put it in the budget, but have we discussed it as being a budget item as a council?
Well, I thought that is it the A Avenue or?
Yeah, that
Well, that was
something else you were referring to.
Yeah, it was something, that wasn't.
Well, that was the 9-dot report.
Yeah, the river intake project is the.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about the AM thing.
So you were talking about the A Avenue, and that you might want to hold it off.
Yeah.
And my view was it's part of the water system, and the Build Canada Fund is coming, and we've discussed using Build Canada funding for the river intake based on the report that was done by Dot Engineering. We haven't made any decisions as to which option. That's where a discussion has to occur. But again, once the budget is passed, then the door will open to go forward, and I'm hoping we will have resolved what it is we want to apply for. But so for you, my question for you is, do you have the time to act? Because the village is going to put it in, right?
And that's why you're saying you want to defer it, it's because there's not.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering, if you
physical
don't have enough
resources.
time.
Yeah, because it's just starting to run through these different projects, and like Water Street's a big one.
Okay, well,
Boat launch,
yeah.
I forget some of the other ones we.
Okay, well, that,
Councillor Lang?
Well, further to the mayor's comments, I think that it's, when you apply for the Build Canada Fund, that you're not under the obligation to build if you're successful. You usually have, I think it's 2 to 3 years to complete the project after the grant's awarded. So it's not like you have to immediately put it into this year's works program. A lot of times, by the time you do the engineering and go to tender and do all that stuff, you're into the next budgetary cycle anyway. So it shouldn't preclude us from being ready to go, ready to apply, but it doesn't necessarily follow that the work's going to get done this year.
So maybe, if you could just clarify, I think Councillor Lang is correct, but I did not clarify that.
Well,
Mr.
my only question on this is that the federal government have been fairly clear that the program is changing substantially this time around. So I don't want to predict how that's going to be rolled out at this time. It may well be easier to access than it was before. That's the line Mr. Flattery was pushing in the budget. But it's like the gas tax itself. We're still not in a position where we've got the details to know what's happening from March. However, if council wishes to pull back from the A Avenue project, which we've identified as a priority, it would be good to have a recommendation to council that has been pulled for this year, and perhaps with some language around tying it in with the Castle River Intake project.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So it was 2 motions or a single motion? Did you find?
Yeah, I definitely want to see it go ahead. I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in the discussions, because Mr. Wilkes was here on Sunday and I met with him on Monday, he assures me that UBCM no longer controls how that money is spent. That they get 25% of the total dollars awarded to British Columbia, but each municipality is now free for 75%. So, I've asked Neil to specifically check on that pronouncement by the MP to see if, in fact, he totally understands it. But that was the whole debate. BC was the province that held out the longest because UBCM wanted to totally control that money, and the federal government said, no, that money is gas tax money that belongs to the municipality. So why are you interfering with what their needs are? You'll clarify. I'm sure the other CAOs in the province are digging into this, and we're still, they haven't passed the budget yet. Okay.
Moving a little further down, we are looking at street lighting for this year in a couple of spots. One is Water Street with LEDs, potentially using gas tax money there, and also where's the other area of light that's I've got the address mentioned somewhere here.
It's B Avenue from 4th to 5th, from the City Hall. Yeah, in that direction. There's 3 street lights there, and we would tie them into the City Hall panel. Because they're pretty messed up, those ones. And that would take care of most of Lower Castle. Well, all the ones that we can basically use. We can't do anything about the ones up the hill that are on Fortis poles. But these ones, all the ones downtown, these steel poles, they're ours, and we would be paying a fraction of what we have to be paying. And that's what we've been working towards.
Yeah.
We still have a D Avenue to do as well, but it's already tied in. It's just we haven't replaced the underground yet. So it's still a little wiring, but at least we tied it into our panel now, so.
What's the cost of putting more streetlights in? Like, there are some areas downtown that are pretty dark. Like along, Third Street? Like where you guys were putting the new ones in, the new lighting in? It is really dark along that street, almost right to the, from the river down to the Mason building. There's maybe one street right there. And down near the garden there, like where you come along Rainbow Road and then turn the corner up on Marianne Johnson. There are no lights down there. That's really good too.
That street we just did.
It's pretty dark down there.
It must be over further. So the new, was it new? It's got
Along
the new
that
name.
alley?
No, this is, yeah, well, so you know when you walk along by,
Where
used to work.
side.
yeah, there, along there.
Oh, yeah, down, no, there's not, you're right. That could be added to. And certainly, adding lights, if, we changed out one of them, on the corner by your place, actually. We went with an LED, and everybody seems quite impressed with that. And the cost is not much more than a regular overhead. They've really come down, and you use a fraction of the power. You can put a lot more on the same line because they don't draw, they draw very little amps. So I forget how many more, like you probably with 3 times as many lights on the same power line because they don't draw very much.
And I mean, if we could, I mean, again, it comes down to time and availability for Castle Electric, but potentially, but we could use gas tax funds for a street lighting project that includes Water Street and a couple of areas. That's not.
I think we probably want to get these other
Yes,
couple
those
things
two.
done first before
Yeah.
we start adding.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that could be a good rolling program,
It can be done, especially with LEDs now, is adding more in between.
Yeah.
Because we run conduit through everything, so it's all proper and good.
Just out of curiosity, how deep down are those lines? I'm just thinking about the broadband discussions, they need 18 inches. Is that electrical wiring deeper than 18 inches or?
Yeah, it's about 3 feet.
Okay. And it's mapped?
Not very well.
Okay.
It is mapped, but it's,
This came up in a discussion of possible.
I've been talking to Don Scarlett a bit.
Oh, I have it. Okay, good.
So that's those
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe before we get too much further, I'd like to be done at 6, because I haven't been home since lunch. So,
Do you want me to scoot through quickly? Or,
yeah, hit the points that
Okay.
we should, because we've got some other items.
On water service connections, we've got a bit of an expense for the fire hall, the hot tap for the fire hall. That was one of our agreed contributions to that project. So we're estimating about 4,500 for that. Sewer utility, we're taking account of the new rodding machine and the pump and follower winch we require. Take it done. The cemetery, apparently there's a not long-term but a medium-term request for a replacement ride-on mower for the volunteers that do that work. So in a preliminary sense, we're budgeting for that.
I think it'll be far less than that.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be a fancy one. It won't be a fancy one. It won't be a big one.
You'll notice on parks and recreation that I'm eliminating a number of line items there to be rolled into essentially parks, capital and grounds, so that we have a little bit more maneuverability with a lot of the funds. That includes things like the tree planting and tree maintenance, as well as the parks and equipment. And we're already looking at how much roughly we should spend on tree planting this year and where we should do it. So it's certainly part of our process for the coming year. Castle Bay Park and the Moy Park and the Waterfront Trail. Of course, that's regional district funds. That I believe is coming up tomorrow at the regional district budget meeting as to what the future of those funds will be. I'm also budgeting a little bit of money for the SS Moy. That's probably more than I require for slope stabilisation. We are bringing a geotech up along with True Engineering, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, to look at three things in the next couple of weeks. One is Water Street, one is the trail below Water Street, and the other is the SS Moy slope issue, which seems to be progressing. I think before too long, we are going to need some clear advice there on what to do. The street isn't failing. The paved road isn't failing, but the sidewalk around the hydrant area is, and the signs are starting to slowly move towards the SS Moy, and the timber retaining wall is failing. So it appears to have absolutely nothing to do with any tree clearance that's going on there, because there's no trees nearby. But I think there is something that needs to happen. That needs to look at it.
It's not an in-depth, not a
No,
huge.
it's not a major cost, but the Historic Society have asked that we look into it. Boat launch construction, 5,000 to complete. MMBC going into recycling. I'm guessing roughly $10,000 in revenue this year, based on not a full year, 7 months out of 12. I've got a report ready for you for next regular meeting. I've been given we have got our completed signed contract, unlike other local governments, and we have a very strong commitment from their senior management that flat fee of roughly $19,000 a year is good for the 3-year duration. The only thing that may dent our aspirations is to get bonuses if the regional district depot remains where it is. Because people will stay in their old habits instead of using curbside. But I'm already in touch with Willie Wolf about trying to encourage the public to use their curbside service, because it actually reduces the regional district's costs if the MMBC services are actually being used in council. So my hopes there are that it will settle down. And we will have some money for education and administration, all of that. Not a lot, but some. So there's more things there that we could cover if you wish, but we're just, I know we need to accelerate a bit in the next few weeks, and we're getting there. It will be, with City Hall, if it bears fruit, the grant applications, it'll be a big project. Glenn will certainly have some involvement in that. I suppose there's a degree of nervousness of we're adding that as an extra layer as well. But if we are fortunate with grant applications, that would be good. So, has anyone got any questions for us?
Councillor Ryan?
Is it realistic to expect us to get this more or less done by the end of March? Because there's still a lot of questions to be answered.
Well, in terms of what the bottom line is going to be,
Yes.
we won't be able to give you a good picture until we know what the regional district taxation looks like. But depending on how long the board wrestle with that, we could be well into March.
I'm just thinking that maybe we need a separate meeting.
Well, that's further down.
Yeah.
An additional, scheduling additional meetings. We've already
Okay,
discussed
okay.
that.
Fine. And and also Carol's done a huge amount of work on this to get us to this point as well. So it's a team effort.
Thank you, Carol.
All right. So, I think, unless anybody has any specific questions for Glenn, we can let you go. Thank you. The next item is the Village of Silverton proposal.
So this is just what we discussed at the last council meeting, because it's referred to committee of the whole again. My only budgetary comment on it is essentially that if we incur this expenditure, I should cut back on some other areas around financial training for the time being. We are looking at trying to set something up with the Maze Temple Consulting, so to get all three of us in the office properly orientated with that system. I need properly introduced to it, and both Carol and Stephanie certainly want more time with someone who knows the ins and outs of that system, but that'll come with probably quite a price tag, a few $1,000s. But if we're looking at participating in something like this in what is quite an expensive year, I suspect it's a case of one or other rather than both. But it's your call on that. The methodology that's proposed isn't what I would necessarily see as being optimal for our needs in a consultant's report, but there would be an opportunity to modify it, perhaps to Kaslo's needs a little better. I know that New Denver is not participating in this initiative.
Mary?
Well, I'd like to make a recommendation that we budget $2,000 because one of the most important aspects is shared training costs. So I don't think you have to give up on the training. It may be available through the results of this model that's going to be brought forward. And it may not, I don't know how the training is going to occur, but all the others are on Maze as well. So I think there's a common sense that Maze training, to bring somebody in to do the training, we may be able to reduce the costs of Maze. So it's a question that for $2,000, what was your total training cost estimate?
To bring someone from the Lower Mainland, I didn't want to hazard much volume until we're serious about approaching. It might be less than that, but that could be a realistic cost. We did talk. Carol and I did talk with the New Denver staff, but of course the New Denver staff's changing now about pooling potentially training opportunities under Maze. That kind of links into what I see as the kind of weakness in this proposal, as I put in my staff report. It's focusing on the Chief Financial Officer services. I perceive the weakness to be, that is certainly a weakness, particularly for the extremely small municipalities like Slocan and Silverton. But for us, the cost of training outside of the area in a region like this is extremely high. And there is good programming available, whether it's the GFOA, the boot camp, or the webinars. But to get staff up to speed on reporting requirements, how to do the necessary reporting without being a CGA, it seems to be the Achilles heel for a lot of the municipalities. And with a will, municipalities pooled could look at making training more affordable to the local area. I'd very much like to see something like this go forward with a deep exploration of that, because we aren't all going to be able to recruit CGAs to our CFO positions.
So I just wondered, if we were to go this route and do the CFO, would that affect our current staffing level?
There's no commitment from this to change anything. It's just to look into the problem. However, although on the surface we have a lot of the same challenges, the municipality we have the most in common with out of all of these is Salvo, similar-sized municipality with two officers optimally, and I know they've had their recruitment challenges too. But we shouldn't really be comparing ourselves to Silverton and Slocan. They're very different beasts. But it's an exploration.
Did you talk to someone?
I haven't talked with Salmo yet on the subject, but I think they're supportive of the initiative, I believe.
They are because of the training. That's, the model isn't just about it. Big, in my take of the meeting was, that was one of the single biggest elements of benefit. The model will come up with ways in which small municipalities can share training costs that are in this area. So I'm not too sure on, where's Bob LaFleur? He's in the acting CAO in Silverton. Yeah, so I'm not too sure, where that came from, but the meeting that the mayors and CAOs had at the regional district with Carruthers was to address training. And the interesting thing is the Columbia Basin Trust are going to come up with how much? $27,000, I think?
Yes, they've already committed some funds to this initiative.
But they're going to come up with $27,000 for the model that explores where opportunities can emerge for rural municipalities. And they're at, but I mean, how it is with Columbia Basin Trust. If you don't have a little bit of funding to leverage, then they get very reluctant to, proceed with something where there's no buy-in from the municipalities. So I'd like to make that motion. There's a second there. I think I should have done that before I spoke.
Motion by Mayor Lee, second by Councillor Lang.
Yeah, my only concern is that I'd like to see it included in the budget discussions at this stage of the game, and that maybe we can yay or nay it down the road.
So not a commitment, but just as a line item.
I don't want to see it taken out at this stage of the game, so I'll vote in favor of including it.
Councillor Beaver?
I would prefer, if we're going to spend that amount of money, it's to train our own staff. If it's going to be, 2,000, and you think it's going to be less than 5,000, I would prefer the money go just for our own staff training.
I just wonder if the single biggest benefit you see is the training. Can't that just be done with staff talking and saying, we're talking about getting somebody in to do some maize training. Do you want to join us for a day or 2 days or whatever it is? And especially if we're going to have the conferencing units, and that might be an assisting thing. So there's nothing stopping us from collaborating on training at this point. Is there? Other than the will? So, and especially if everybody uses maize. That's what's identified in here, is that all those municipalities
They're
are
all using maize, but they're not using many of the software packages available in maize. That's the problem. And we're experiencing that problem right now. We don't have the packages that we need to do proper cost accounting.
Silverton are companies. I made a call to someone I know that teaches some of our financial courses in the LGME, and he was quite enthusiastic about the proposal, because it's not as if this is something that's new. A lot of the small municipalities are struggling with this all over the place. However, the one flag of concern that you raised was over accounting software. Apparently a number of years ago there was a big push by I think it was 4 large municipalities in BC to do a joint procurement on an accounting system, and it didn't last long because if you're on a common contract, you're all on the same system. It's designed the same way, the same line items. So every time someone wanted to change something to be more responsive to their own organisation, everybody had to change. So they all, because you're all on one contract. so that they had it all started with sweetness and light, but it fell apart really quickly. And you're reliant on the same CFOs with the same opinions about the systems staying around. So his only note of caution was, yes, this is a great idea, but be very cautious about committing to pooled software systems. It might not work out.
So maybe we should have your motion read back, because I think what Councillor Lang was asking for might be different than what you...
Okay.
What was... We'll read
Well,
that.
it was basically his recommendation before to participate in the proposed initiative with a 2,000 contribution from the village.
So that's more of a firm, yes, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the way it stands, and you seconded for discussion. So are we ready to call the question?
Well, I have a question.
Perfect.
By supporting this motion, it goes into the budget, right?
And well, this is, yes, as a firm
As a
thing.
firm commitment
Yeah.
that can't be extracted at a later date if we find that we're in deep doo where the budget's concerned.
It's only a recommendation to council at this point.
Right.
Okay. I'll support it. I'll vote in favor.
Well, she doesn't call the question.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
no,
happy.
it was just letting him ask his question.
Yeah.
All those in favor? And opposed? Motion fails. Okay, next item is council expense.
Yes, Stephanie put this together basically to give you an update on where things stand right now with current travel commitments. We have you noticed in my earlier review, I've got over 13,500 budgeted, so. And based on current estimates, if everybody is pretty tight on the expenditures, that would just about do it. I am a little nervous about it at this stage of the year. I'm not convinced that will do it, put it that way, at the end of the day. But I'd like to be proven wrong. But a couple of you are getting close to being maxed out already, so it's that's if you're sticking with those individual allocations.
So, well, I'd like to increase mine to 3,000 to make sure that I've got enough for UBCM, because it may usually share some costs, you and I, so that sharing and so on. So just increase mine to 3, please.
You can decrease mine to 1,500 and then you get the 5,000.
Okay. Mary?
Well, something Neil and I discussed was the contingency, because meetings come up that we can't time for. So when we fix this, we then eliminate the opportunity to attend other, unless I guess council could agree to exceed the budget then, if they're planning to do so. Is that the way?
Well, if funds permit it at that time of year, we have the freedom to do it. Yeah, so I mean, personally, if we're writing this timeframe, I know it's a bit of a sensitive issue right now. We've had a number of discussions on it. I think you're probably better off. I mean, yes, give yourself some guidelines for limits, but perhaps have something closer to 15 to give yourself some comfort, so that you can actually ask for some travel authorizations later in the year if something suitable really comes up. Although I'd urge you to hold back until the summer on anything else, so that you don't use up your spare room too quickly.
I'm thinking of, we got the Columbia Basin treaty negotiations going on, there's a number of things going on, and I'm not too sure on how all of those meetings could come together. So could I make a recommendation that we set the budget at 15,000, but hold to
The last 1,500 as a certain, like an additional, so maintaining our personal limits as much as possible, but with the other 1,500 accessible for things that arise that we haven't planned for.
Yeah.
Because I'm only going to do UBCM.
Yeah.
I know that, because there's nothing else that really happens in the time frame that will work for me.
I just know, like, there's a lot of things that I'm not charging for, like the West Kootenai development dialogue that goes on maybe quarterly and talk about economic development and things like that. But where I'm a little nervous here is issues around by, using my truck and camping in it and stuff like that, as long as I'm not against a specific project like AKBLG, if I decide not to stay in the accommodation, does that money stay with my situation so I can do other things?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
if you don't
that's
spend it on
fine.
AKBLG,
Yeah, so
then
if I-
it gets left for something else.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm just saying it's good, because Rob's the same way. I mean, we don't charge airfares or anything like that, so we're looking at ways, in some cases I don't charge the per diem,
Right.
because, it's convenient not to do that. But so my recommendation would be to go to $15,000 based on an understanding that the money would only be used based on council's sense that this is an important meeting that needs to be dealt with.
I've got set council expenses to $15,000, hold last 1,500 as a contingency for individual items of council to be approved or sorry, to be authorised by council.
Council resolution?
Yeah.
All right.
So would that be, a contingency before the meeting happens or after? I don't
Should be
think
before.
before, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we should run into the same problem we had at the end of this year. So as long as it's before the meeting happens, we have that contingency.
Do we have a second for that? Councillor Lamb? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Then we have two public, we had two public submissions. One for a standing wave
Yes.
and if the mouth of Castle River, and the other one for the pool again, so.
Those were two public budget submissions we received. They're at the same time we received a lot of letters on the subject of the beach. I wasn't sure if they were part of the same raft of messages, but they seemed rather different. They struck me as budget submissions more than letters of complaint, for sure.
I recommend that we inform Mr. Shaw that unfortunately there's no room in the budget for either item. Definitely not. Like $1 million complex, that's for just a pool.
I just wonder if the standing wave project was ever vetted through the Ministry of Environment. Seeing that's a major swine creek.
I don't want to take up too much time, but what the hell is a standing wave pool?
Oh, he's got pictures of it.
Oh, okay.
It's a concrete structure that would go into the Castle River that would create a standing wave by the water rushing down over it, so you could go out there and pretend you're swimming.
Oh, okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's a good response. No money.
Yeah.
So somebody want to make that motion? I'll just write it.
Okay.
So Councillor Heathwood and Councillor Lang. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Okay, additional meeting schedule.
Yes, just in discussion with the chair, I think we're now at a time of year where you usually slate some extra meetings, and I think that's probably in order. I'm not sure what we want to do with this, however. We could move the other committee of the whole meetings over to the budget topic for a couple of months as well, rather than exponentially increase your number of meetings.
Right.
What would happen with our committee of the whole?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You could rather than have committee of the whole open for your general topics for the next couple of months, you could exclusively focus on budget and staff.
Right.
Basically, we move to budget discussions at both meetings rather than you having to add lots of additional, a significant amount of additional meetings. Yeah, anyway, so basically the next committee of the whole meeting, yes, there might be some delegation, I don't think we're any lined up yet, but it would be an extension of this meeting. Basically.
Right, but my question then was what happens with those committee of the whole issues then for 2 months? We just put them on hold for 2 months? Or a couple of months?
Well, that's the question for you.
Right.
What do you want to put those on hold, or do you want? Jim Holland's the chair for the committee of the whole in the evening for the next 3 months. Yeah.
Mayor Lee?
I don't have any problem saying this is committee time. And unless it's a really urgent matter for a committee of the whole, I would receive it and then trust the CAO to identify whether or not this is a matter of urgency and has to be dealt with right away. But budget is probably one of the most important things that council does. And if we have to commit more time to it, then people should understand that the committee of the whole level, that based on your assessment of how urgent this matter is for the party coming forward, and if it can be dealt with at a later committee of the whole meeting, I don't have any problem saying, hey, this is budget time. This is when we have to. So if it's really urgent, fine, we'll take it and deal with it. But otherwise, we table it until a more convenient time.
Or we have more meetings.
Or you have more meetings.
Or though, if they're that urgent, then it wouldn't go to the committee of the whole, they would go to one of our 2 council meetings that we hold each month.
Yes,
Which is another option.
yes, you have 9 new business and
Mr. Lieber?
Well, I just think it then defeats the purpose of moving the committee of the whole. I mean, we knew from the start that, and we did suggest having more than one budget committee of the whole. So to me, we started the committee of the whole not that long ago, and now already we're going to say we're going to move it into budget. I think we should just have another meeting in the month that's budget.
Okay, so we have to, do we want to see if we can get a doodle poll going, or would people respond to a doodle poll? Because if not everybody is going to go on and check their email and respond to the doodle poll, there's no point in making that effort. But then everybody, if you get it on your email and you can be looking at your own calendar at that time and say, yeah, this, once Neil's gone through and looked at potential dates and times, then you can say yay or nay, and from that determine when a suitable time is without waiting too long. Mayor Lee?
Well, I think we've been able to get our regular council meetings down to less than an hour. So I think if we need a special meeting, we meet for an extra hour after the regular council meeting.
you also have the option of having committee of the whole before or after regular council meetings.
That's
So
right.
I think that would popular with you. But there is that option too. Other municipalities sometimes look at doing that, having committee of the whole immediately before the regular meeting, so that you have the discussion, and then that can, if it's action items, then you move everything from that into business if you want to get all the resolutions.
That doesn't really work for me. because I know Tuesday meetings and now somewhat 2 weeks, so I can't get back earlier. I mean, I sometimes barely make it by 6 o'clock.
So do you want the CAO just to throw out some dates? And so we'll probably need at least, I would think, 2 additional meetings at this point.
At least 2.
Yeah. So, but why don't we schedule 3 just to be on the safe side rather than doing this again in 2 weeks or a month's time. And
Okay. So essentially adding 1 meeting to each month.
so, yeah, 1 more for February, March, and April. We're going to be pretty close. We got to be really close to done by mid-April. So
Yeah.
that gives you time for
Yeah.
bylaws and.
Okay. Yeah.
So between now and mid-April.
I'll send, I'm going to be away during spring break, so I'll send you those dates.
Okay.
So on.
Okay.
So that compresses it quite a bit. That's 2 weeks right at
Well,
that's
I'm
out of the
there.
schedule.
I'm only gone for a week and a half, so
Okay.
I'm here for 1 time.
All right, and municipal grants.
So you can either deal with these now, or you, in terms of making recommendations, or you can leave this till next week. As you see, you're quite heavily oversubscribed in terms of what you normally
Yeah.
you normally pay out, about in order to $2,000. I'm not sure what you want to do with that, because you're going to have to either hold the line or disappoint a number of our non-profits.
Councillor Deepwood?
The Westwood Wildcat, is that, I actually didn't look at the application.
Oh, that's the girls hockey team.
Right. So there's how many?
2.
2?
One of them got a village resident. And these are village and castle grants.
I mean, that to me would be very good.
Yes.
But you do, I mean, if you wanted to be hard line about it, you've got about $2,500 worth there of organisations who submitted applications who didn't provide the financials of that in the proper format. But I know you're not too sticky about that.
The International Amenity Migration Center.
That's,
Mr. Moss.
Oh.
And who's the marimba band?
that's Jeremy's group. Well, what do we think about the Wildcat one? Because it is really it's an out of town, and that would be, to something that's really not Kaslo. It's got one Kaslo resident playing on the team, and one regional district.
Yeah, I would support the, asking them to apply for a rec grant, isn't that?
That's, yes.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, that's a
yeah.
rec grant, I mean, that's not a municipal.
The provincials are coming up in a couple of weeks, so I don't think giving them a grant in April is going to do much.
Well, they can still apply for it. We've given lots of grants away to groups that have come, like not during the granting time, to the school and stuff, when they've had to go to provincials. They just need to write a letter to the village, and then we take it out of the recreation grant. But that to me is not a municipal grant.
So you've set a tentative, so 2014 a tentative budget of
Yes,
4,500,
based on what I've seen.
3,500 to distribute right now because of holding back usually $1,000 for those last minute things.
No, they've presented you a bit of a tough challenge there. Because
No,
they're-
they usually don't get the full.
Yeah.
So, So I was going to suggest if we take out the Bantam rep, and then I would say, because the life writers is such a small ask, give them 100% and then distribute the rest, cut them back the same amount, rather than trying to pick and choose which ones unless you want to defer it to the next meeting, and if people can go away and say, you know, this is what I'd like to do with the 3,500 to distribute right for this set of grants in mind, and then we can just average it from there. Or Councillor Lang?
I'd like to defer it, and I'm going to approach some of these people and ask them just absolutely how essential this money is, because I think it's got to the point where people are just saying, well, there's a process, we might as well be part of it, and we'll think of something to apply for.
And I think we've got to be careful that we're approaching people as individual councillors and asking them, you know, you would know the information, but then when we're deliberating, you know, are we all going to go and ask them? Or, you know...
Well, I guess what I'd like to do is ask them, you know, are you serious about this? Is this a serious requisition?
Well, I think we need to, you know, revise the methodology we're using to address Councillor Lang's issues. I like the idea of, for this year, prorating. It's fairly fair to do that. Everybody got a little bit. Yeah. It begs the question about the validity of the grant, but that's our problem. Like, I'm looking at the one on blinds for the Lolokia Mining Cultural Society. Okay, well, what I'd like to know is there other funding involved with that? Are they going to leverage that funding, or are we paying the whole shot? So there's a number of outstanding. I think we just need to. But I'd be interested in the CEO's experience with something. Have you had any experience like this before?
Well, I've run a community tourism grant program for the regional district of Mount Wellington. It was it's challenging because you have a balance of two kinds of organisations. You get the local organisations that just automatically max out their request and provide very little information about what it's actually paying for. And then you have the ones that really think it out and ask for exactly how much they want, and they have it fully costed in a big proposal, even if it's only for a few $100s. But it's very tough around the table because you've got to disappoint some people. You can put criteria on it, but then you're making organisations run the extra mile for a comparatively small amount of money.
Well, again, I go down this list, and I'm having issues with at least half a dozen of these applications. That, like, without knowing any of the details, the Castle Guitar Fest rental costs, if you're holding a music event, charge admission, that usually covers the cost of renting the facility.
All the apps are there.
Okay.
And some of your questions are addressed
Okay,
in those.
Yeah.
There's behind it. It says full package, and I did read them all this morning.
Okay, I did read them. I apologize.
So let's then defer this to, well, I guess our next special budget meeting, or will we be ready to just come with our choices to the next?
That's not a snake bug, it's something else.
That's weird. So just so that we don't end up with the same back and forth at whatever meeting it is, what method do we want to use? Does everyone have Excel on their computers? Because I was thinking that, that if an Excel file was sent around and then each person could put their dollar values in, and if it came with the Well, it's a thought. It's either that or we, with that budget in mind, send them all to staff for them to collate and come up with an average. Or, I'm just trying to save us, a lot of time rehashing it again at the next meeting. So if we can come ready to make a decision at that time.
So are you meaning the next budget meeting or for the next regular meeting of council?
Can we have it done by next week, everybody? Or would
Probably.
you rather?
I can.
Okay.
All right. So we'll just each come with our numbers and then we'll pick an average of what people have allotted to each of them.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. All right. Councillor Leaflet?
So for that recreation one,
Right.
should we inform them that this would be better suited, just so that they don't miss the opportunity to get a rec grant? That should we write them a letter or inform them that they could apply to the village for a rec grant?
This is
We
for
usually
that.
post them, the ones that flow through the regional district.
Well, we have done that a lot of times where, when the basketball team.
Because we didn't know whether they were going to
Yeah,
actually
so-
get it.
And we've done that, so they could apply to the village and we could just take it off our grant, which we know we have.
No,
Wait,
usually we
rec-
take it off of here because the rec grants is the committee that decides that, right?
Right.
It's got to be out of municipal, is where we've taken the
Yeah.
extra money out.
Okay.
Because otherwise, why have a committee if you're just going to take and spend their money anyway?
Well, no, but, we know how much money we have, right?
The committee has, the
Yeah.
rec committee has.
Yeah.
At this point, we don't know. Again,
But
until
we
tomorrow.
typically do,
Yeah.
So we're just leaving that as it is for now, then?
I don't know.
So is
I
it,
just want to get consensus here if
Yeah.
we can, so we are all on the same page as to what we're going to do.
are you going to hold the line at $4,500 for the whole year, 3,500 out?
I think we should.
Yeah, because
Yes, we should.
that's higher than last year's budgeted amount, so, and in a tough budget year, I think. That's about all we can do. Mayor May?
Just thinking for next year, it would be interesting to have a pre-budget strategy so that people know, do you want your taxes to go up or not? We can increase these costs if you're prepared to, deal with the taxes rather than get to this point where we're stuck with this and then people get mad because, their needs aren't met. But that's just for the future, that's all. But anyway, for right now,
Okay,
just-
so
what else is
we'll come back. So we're going to go into in-camera session, so we'll have a motion to exclude the public on the basis
Move.
of section 91A.